What's up? This is Vanessa from Double XO. We're here doing Moments of Clarity. Ramon's back from his Paris trip. Happy birthday again to his girl, his wife. And
Yes, sir.
I didn't
Yes,
even
ma'am.
see. I didn't even see your
Yes, ma'am.
Mona Lisa over there.
Her name is actually Lisa, which I
Just-
learned.
She's just Lisa.
It's not even Mona. It's Lisa.
Where did Mona come from?
Mona is a signature name that they give to like all the women in France. They
So
say.
I'd be Mona Vanessa.
There you go.
Nah. Oh, like they say Mona me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true. Good call.
You learn something different. This is not the
Shout out to
regular
Mona
show.
Scott. Yeah. All right. So what's going on? So I guess it's been a kind of slow week. We'll get to Power in a sec because it finally wrapped, and Shah wants to talk about Power. But first, the biggest thing is Snoop apologizing for the Gayle King thing. So that kind of was like on the late last week. You had 50 make a video for Instagram, kind of speaking on the interview Gayle King was doing with Lisa Leslie, where she asked her about Kobe's issue with the sexual assault case, and everybody getting bothered that she brought that up in the interview. And then Snoop puts out his own Instagram and kind of really goes at her neck. Like, I mean, there was a little bit of a threat in there, And or definitely he was very angry. And then, after that video came out, I said, Snoop's going to have to fall back a little bit. That was a little hard.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Like,
So he must have gotten some pressure for him to release an apology statement to Gayle.
What did you think? Because we ain't really get to talk.
Yeah,
about
we
it.
ain't talk about it.
Did you thought he was?
well, what I was saying was, I was looking at the message, and when I saw the interview, I was angry as well. A lot of people was angry. I was one of the people, excuse me, that was angry as well. And then I was looking at the phone, and he gave his remarks, and you could tell that was leading up to something, but everything was cool. And then when he said,
Snoop?
Should I? Yeah, Snoop.
Yeah.
And then when Snoop said, should I call her one? I was like literally like talking to my phone like, nah, don't do it. Because it was kind of perfect up until that point.
Yeah, and then the end gets a little much.
Then he called the one, and I was like, that's going to cause a little issue. And then, I went a little bit further. And, Snoop is somebody I have a personal relationship with, man. And, he's one of the most genuine, loving people that you could ever meet. Like the last time he had a concert, my aunt, aunt, she came backstage. She's 80. I don't want to say her wrong age. She's 83. She's 83 years old, but she loves Snoop. And I think Snoop is probably, all of the rappers, he's probably the most loved rapper right now. And she wanted to, I've been in the industry for all these years, and she's only asked to meet a couple of people, and Snoop was one of them. Went backstage with Snoop. First time ever. I don't know if he put it out because she was there. Wasn't no smoke or nothing in the room. He gave her a hug, gave her a kiss. He like really kicked it with her for a few minutes. Warren G was back there. And Snoop is really a kind person. So I knew at that point when he had his remarks at Gayle, some people said it was a little bit overboard, but I know he was just talking in anger. I know Snoop is not a violent guy, and he's not sending goons out to get Gayle or whatever, but you got to realize that Kobe means so much to a lot of us, but especially out there in the West Coast and Cali. Like, Kobe is really like a part of their family. Like, it's somebody that they have personal relationships with, somebody that they adored, and for her to bring those type of comments up is really disappointing. Gayle, Oprah Winfrey, those are people who us in the black community, and really all community, that we should be looking up to as great figures. The story is good, how they built themselves up, but the past few years, that Michael Jackson documentary, right. That was heartbreaking because, Oprah knows how much Michael Jackson means to us. And, for her to go with these people who their stories after the show came out, some of their stories came up as lies, so it was just like, damn, Oprah doing that. And then
Did Oprah do the Michael Jackson documentary, or did she just speak on it?
she interviewed those guys like
Right.
after the documentary.
But she didn't executive produce. It
She
wasn't
didn't- she
through
didn't-
her. I'm
well,
just confused. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she what
She
happened?
did a whole special.
Yeah, she did a
She did a
special.
whole show.
Like after the episodes of the documentary was in a few episodes, and then after each episode, she would interview the accusers and interview the director, and it was like,
It felt like it was putting, she's putting fuel on the fire.
yeah,
Like the show aired, it's like, all right, cool, and then they did a whole special.
yeah, and we remember, the historic interview when Michael Jackson brought Oprah to his house and they did an interview. So, that just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth because he's such a beloved icon. And then, her best friend Gayle putting up these questions about Kobe when the man was actually exonerated. He never went to jail on those accusations.
Was he exonerated or was it settled before they went
Well,
to trial?
It was settled.
Yeah, I don't think he was exonerated. I think it was settled before he went to trial.
You could settle civilly, but if they have a strong case, they would have put Kobe to jail. If they had a strong case, they would have put him in jail.
But you know the worst part about it, so I seen it. I don't know like the exact time when it hit, but I know that like Thursday evening throughout Friday it was bubbling.
What was the?
That whole the conversation around that interview.
Oh, okay. No, I thought we were going back to the case itself. Gotcha. Yeah.
Do you understand that they buried Kobe and his daughter on Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the shit that's bubbling?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not supposed to be the conversation, and that's one of the things that's not really being talked about. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just really foul. I mean, aside from the fact that it was wrong to even go there, it was just really bad timing. You know what I'm saying? And there's no reason to even go there. And if you look at the interview, that they did with Lisa Leslie, like she even felt uncomfortable about doing it.
Well, I was surprised she didn't say I have no comment on that. She
was being professional.
that thing. I mean, Gayle was putting her journalist hat on and trying to get some information, right? And the timing was inappropriate for it to come out, and we're supposed to believe that she had nothing to do with the promo rollout or anything, which, I mean, I don't believe you do a big interview and then you don't see the promo clips for it and you had no idea what was going to happen. So I think she tried to go hard doing the journalist thing at maybe a time where it was, not the right time to do it. And then the network threw flames on it by putting out that particular clip in order to promote it. So you had kind of a mix of all of that at the same time that the funeral's happening. And then all of that leads to her getting death threats, right? So it's all over the place with it. My concern with all of it is the death threat part, right? So, I mean, does she really deserve to be, that mentality of people, was it, I just think that mentality now these days, or if you do a certain thing, we're going to threaten you because Snoop said so-and-so or whatever. There's something about that to me becomes extreme. Like it was the wrong time to put that clip up. It was the wrong time to do that interview right now. All of that was distasteful, but I don't like the death threats. That to me takes it to another place that's like,
we gotta do our job.
Yeah.
And I also feel too that, much respect to Gayle King. I recently did some stuff with CBS and I literally, as soon as I walked into the building, like one of the first people I saw was Gayle King.
Mm-hmm.
She was sitting down getting ready and she like went out her way to say what's up to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just as far as like seeing brotherhood like in the building.
No, you
That's how I
usually
felt.
always hear great stuff about her too in general.
I was appreciative of that. But I felt like she made it worse for herself when, the whole thing about I didn't know, etc. What they was putting in front of me.
No, she definitely dug herself a deeper grave.
Right.
Yeah.
That,
no pun intended.
Right. That thing didn't help. And even going back then, I had an issue with the R. Kelly shit.
Yeah.
Because it's not because it's R. Kelly, because it's like I always say this, it's like they never had R. Kelly on CBS promoting his albums. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So regardless, whatever that man did, in the case may be, it felt like they got a look then, and they like, yo, let's go run with this.
Definitely, but on the flip side of that is, which I think we see with ours, we see with 21 Savage, is like we see rappers or artists do interviews with outlets that don't, and this is not the case with Lisa Leslie and Gayle, but just to go back to the R. Kelly thing, we see them do interviews that we, with outlets that they normally wouldn't talk to when they have a big story all of a sudden. And you're like, it's interesting. You see Good Day, Good Morning America you did for that, but they've never covered you before or different things. So the R. Kelly to me is an extension of they've jumped in on these being big interviews now. So now it's really of the R. Kelly side or anybody, or Tekashi's side, when he comes out, who are you going to do that big interview with? Because you kind of have like one shot to sit down and talk, right, for the first time. So who do you choose to do it with? I think it's interesting that R. Kelly chose to go to Gayle and give her that interview,
Yeah, Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union was on Good Morning America yesterday talking about the gender with their
right.
With
their so it is them deciding who they're going to speak to. Right. I guess I'd assume everybody's making a play for the interviews at this point because everything's so mainstream, or R. Kelly Bean's now such a big mainstream story. But the Lisa Leslie is not the same level of interview. Like everyone's not sitting here waiting for the Lisa Leslie interview. So it's kind of like they didn't even have to step into that whole thing. They didn't have to step into this catastrophe of a rollout to begin with.
They probably called Lisa under the terms, Kobe just passed away. We know you were close. We want to celebrate.
Exactly, right, yeah. He supported you. He talked about you being a powerful female player that I could be getting it wrong, but that she could be, like, wasn't there a quote she could be in the NBA today when he was talking about women who could have played in the NBA? Like, we know he's vocally supported her before, and they had a relationship as basketball players and athletes and stuff. So I see definitely they're making it play that way. But I don't know what they thought they were going to get from even asking her those questions. She had nothing to do with it.
And the domino effect now, which is even worse, like, I appreciate what Snoop did. That was real noble. He didn't have to do that, though, because he was right. You know what I'm saying? He was right. That's some shit that what you say in your house, and you don't necessarily have to release it to the public, but he was fucking right. Like I said, like, that shit was bubbling, and and that family was burying fucking Kobe and his daughter.
Okay, so
it could have really been worse. Like, people could have said a lot worse things in there, but since that has happened, now I've been seeing like all these different reports, like, oh, how far can you go to say X, Y, and Z about Kobe? You ain't said that shit when this man was here.
Yeah.
You ain't said that.
So that brings
me.
Why
you bringing that shit up now? Like, he's dead. Like, it's over. There's no point in bringing that up.
But they're going to.
That's why.
They're going to because they've got.
You tell him. You say it when he's here. You approach him.
I don't think the only reason I argue that is because when he's alive, we're talking about what a legend he is as a basketball player, but you're not. I mean, with death, you start really celebrating someone as a legend and an icon, and all those terms come out. And this is when we start celebrating. He's never been as celebrated as he is right now in death.
Well, no,
but
just
and so then you have
you can't have a conversation about a person and they're not in a position to defend themselves.
But you do, but it's happening. You had the granddaughter of Disney come out and say that, and come out against him. You had journalists come out. So you can't, but it's going to happen. It just will, because you've got a whole bunch of people saying that this guy's a hero and a legend and icon. And then you have people over here saying that he's not, and they want to get their word out, and they're going to bring that. So it makes sense that the conversation happens because people want to argue the idea that he's an icon or a hero. I guess what I'm saying is that's going to happen. The question is it ever appropriate? Do you wait a month after he's gone? Do you wait 2 months? I mean, people want to have the conversation they want to have, and they want to argue that they don't agree with the statements that are being made. So I guess I'm asking you, do you think they ever have that opportunity to talk about it? Or he's gone, nobody can talk about it?
I think you should leave it alone.
Yeah, I think they have the opportunity, but it's like...
Is the issue to you them talking about it, or them talking about it the day before they buried him?
I think it was very distasteful for the fact that this conversation was happening while he was being buried, him and his daughter. That's number one. But number two, it's like, that happened how many years ago?
About 15 years
There's been multiple opportunities to talk to Kobe about the shit himself. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it's really unfair to bring up those type of, conversations about somebody and they're not here to speak on their own behalf and say X, Y, and Z. Have you seen the quote unquote like accuser say anything about it? you know.
Well, I think she probably made, I would guess, ignorant, that she probably settled and made a deal and isn't allowed to speak.
Right.
And there's still an estate that could sue her if she does, even if he's not alive.
You know,
so I'm assuming she doesn't want to get in trouble in whatever deal was made, but the key word was assuming right there.
Right. Obviously, we're in like a really sensitive time, you know, considering like the Me Too movement and, you know, things with like these really big figures up against like women, etc. And the judicial system is like really being questioned, you know, and people look at it like,
so, you know, we look at it in hip hop and we say it's interesting how many cases are going and how long the cases have been going. Like, you know, rappers who have trials or cases that haven't happened yet and they just get pushed back. And even with R. Kelly, they said how long they pushed the R. Kelly trial back, literally to let the victim get older and not look so young on the stands. Right. So there is something very interesting about the U.S. criminal justice system, which, you know, and it's just interesting how things can be pushed back and go on.
Right.
So a trial is going on for 4 or 5 or so and so years. And we see that a lot in hip hop just because, I guess, you know, my guess would be, you know, you've got the lawyers and the ability and the money to be able to push things back further and further.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting also too in the aspect of, you know, people push for what they consider to be justice, even though the justice system is flawed. We all know that.
Exactly.
So it's like you go through the system, and it's like you're either proven guilty or innocent. It's like if you're guilty, you're guilty. If you're innocent, you should be left alone. Mm-hmm. That man in the public eye, like as far as the system, he was proven innocent. So we technically shouldn't even be talking about it.
So the Daily Piece, what stirred up a couple last week or the week before or whatever, was a writer retweeted or tweeted the Daily Beast article, and it was either 2016 or 2017, I don't remember which. Daily Beast did a very detailed article about the Kobe case. Do you think that article is unnecessary, and at that point bringing it up when he was alive in 2016 or 2017 shouldn't even be happening, and them writing about it, or the issue is literally it being brought up with death?
I mean, me personally, I just feel like he's gone. Mm-hmm. Like it's over. Like everything's over, which is unfortunate. Mm-hmm. I would rather them bring the shit up and him be here and they talk about it, but for the fact that like they're bringing it up and like it's like when you gone, like everything's over. You know what I'm saying? Like when it like your life is over, like that's really the end of it. There's nothing really else to talk about.
I mean, I just feel like with Kobe, the man went through a very tough time with that incident in Denver. It was well documented. Somebody who, you know, he fought to keep his marriage. Because remember, at a certain point, they was talking about Kobe's getting a divorce, and you know, even Drake made up the line and stay scheming. And you know, this is a guy who really fought to keep his family together. And you know, at the time of his death, he was showing us a great example of what a model husband and father was. You know, like this is a guy who literally died. He took his daughter to church and he was taking her to basketball practice, and
he was actively participating in his kids' lives.
And other children
and other children's lives, right?
Helping other children too. And you know, I just feel like at this time, you know, we should be talking about the good that he did. You know, he was doing so much good, and he was helping so many young women and even older women as well. You know, like he was a champion for these women in sports and in other aspects. You know, he was saying like, look, the U.S. soccer team should be getting equal pay as their male counterparts. So he was doing a lot. He was doing a lot of good, but you know,
he definitely seemed heavily influenced by having four daughters. The fourth one was a little bit later, so it was 4 daughters, right?
Right.
But he had a young one. But he definitely seemed influenced by having daughters, like that he had compassion for women's sports and women working and everything that he was involved in his daughter's basketball team. Like he took to being a dad of daughters. Yeah. Well, you know, and that became a part of him.
And he was also mentoring a lot of these young guys in the NBA. Like, you know, when you look at Kobe, and you know, you see him in like the practice facility with these guys, and it's not just helping them on basketball moves. Like he was mentoring a lot of these young guys coming into league and how to conduct themselves, how to deal with getting money, fame for the first time. You know, just being a big brother figure. So, you know, everybody that knows him say he was such a great guy. Me from the outside looking in, he looked like a guy that was helping people. Obviously, a great player as well. So, you know, that's how I'm gonna remember him, man. People gonna try to throw dirt on everybody's name, but you know, I feel I'm gonna look at his legacy as being, you know, one of the greats on and off the court.
And you saw that interview with Jay-Z from like the Columbia series that he did. I've never seen Jay emotional like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was like just a couple seconds away from like literally breaking down, talking about how Kobe was at his house on New Year's. And you could tell that it really like impacted them, because you know how Beyonce had put up like a bunch of different posts about his daughter, and I know that she probably had it in relation to Blue and their kids, and you know it's just really fucked up, and you know and that's what I'm saying, like
LeBron came out and said something
right
too.
you just so it's like you just like
Let's
any of
address
that
it.
negative shit, you gotta leave that shit alone.
But
You know
let's
what I'm saying?
also address the elephant in the room too, is that, you know, no matter what her job is, Gayle King is a black woman. You know, Kobe's a black man.
Yeah.
We in the black community expect more unity for people in positions like that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So you were disappointed?
It's very,
very
disappointing.
disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Very disappointed, because
We all been through shit in our life.
we all work for corporations, and you know, look, we was in that MTV, CBS, Viacom thing, and you know, it's definitely been times when, you know, they wanted us to add certain things that would have got great headlines and stuff like that, but at a certain point, you know,
We stood up against them and said no.
yeah, you
We
got
said no.
you gotta
And we wasn't as big as Gayle King then.
right. You gotta. I feel like as a journalist, of course, you have to be a journalist. That's your job. You gotta be a journalist, but you also have to be humane. You gotta be humane, man. And when I see these,
So you think that with Gayle, she should have been more humane in that situation rather than been a journalist?
Again,
I'm just trying to go off of what Shah's explaining.
I do.
I respect CBS. I understand it's a business as far as what they're doing, so this is nothing against them. The shit that what I had the issue with is that it was presented on her behalf,
Her being
Gayle.
Gayle, okay, not
When
Lisa.
she was
Yeah.
like, she made it seem like she was blindsided.
Mm-hmm.
It just came up.
Oh, right, exactly, right.
I've been in those situations, and
Yeah.
specifically with CBS, it just don't work like
Right.
that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
She's very well aware.
They
of the
danced
shit
their way out of
right.
the excuse. They
There's-
put up promo
right.
for a scandalous thing, and then they realized they crossed the line and danced their way out of it by making excuses. And she kind of basically said, "Screw our job. They're the one who fucked me over," right?
Yeah, you know, and it you know, it doesn't help. You know, the shit with Oprah and
The history, the
and-
Russell documentary.
Right. You know,
right.
all that. It just really doesn't help. You know,
So, what do you guys think Gayle and Oprah's issue is? Is there one? I mean, it seems like that's what people are saying. What do you think? Why do you think they're going at it like this? They're having these conversations. Why do you think Oprah wanted to be part of a Russell documentary? Why do you think Gayle wanted to ask that in the interview? Why do you think Oprah wanted to be part of the Michael Jackson thing or do that? What do you think it is? What's their agenda?
You know what's so crazy is for me, I don't know.
Or is there not one?
Because we always expected for them to be in those positions to represent us, that they would never do it. So when we see them do it, it's confusing, and we don't have an answer for it. That's what.
Because one
that's
thing
what the
we've seen 50
conversation is.
say is, you know, why aren't you doing the Harvey Weinstein documentary? But you can argue that
That's
there is a
right.
Harvey Weinstein documentary already, so they don't really need to do that.
I
so
mean, she could attach herself to it, just like she attached herself to the Russell, because from what I understand, the Russell Simmons documentary, that was something that was already out the station and it was already going, and she decided to attach herself onto it, and then she later took herself off. So
I mean, I think she and Russell had something in the works. They were working on a book, and the allegations came out, and she fell back from being friendly with him. And I don't know at what point she started working on the Russell documentary, because it's interesting that Apple's involved in that also, right? And then she gets heat for it after, I think, a year of working on it, at least, or so. and then somebody gets to her and says, I would assume, hey, this is not a good look. Fall back on this Russell documentary, and she kind of bows out from it with some kind of unclear reasons or something. So it's kind of interesting what happened with the Russell process.
The one thing I will say to their credit, to be fair to her and to Gayle, they still have a job to do, and it takes a lot, and especially for a woman on top of that to be, in a position like being looked at as like they're attacking a man, like a powerful man, a powerful position. So the fact that they would even do that and just being fair and being honest about it, then that's cool. But it just felt like some of these situations was like a little bit unbalanced. Again, like you can't have that type of conversation about Kobe because he's not here to defend himself.
And I think it's even weird that you choose to have that conversation with Lisa Leslie, who has nothing to do with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not even like
get nobody
right,
else to
exactly.
Talk about this shit.
So
everybody
then
was like, nope, we're not gonna do it. And she found somebody who they probably like kind of tricked her a little bit into.
I don't think they invited her on the thing to say, well, we want to talk about his rape case or whatever, and your opinions on it. But
I thought Lisa Leslie, not to cut you off, V, I think she handled herself well in that situation. Like she defended Kobe, and she kept her calm, she kept her cool, because some people been like, oh, F this, and they would have walked off, but I think she did an admirable job of the.
And we haven't heard from her to say, even when they asked me that question, I thought it was so and so. Like she's kept it quiet, not tried to stir anything up. And did we see the full length interview?
I haven't.
So I don't think it's out.
Because they'll keep saying that, like
right. There's a full length. Like you saw the full
thing?
length, you'd see how I walked up into it, type of thing. Like why I brought it up as a topic.
I think it aired on. I think it actually aired on TV, but they didn't have it. I think they probably pulled it offline. Because there's some clips online of it, but
right, of pieces of different parts of the interview. Yeah.
My thing is she's pretty powerful. I'm sure she has she's planted her flag.
Gayle or Oprah?
Gayle, where she could have walked into that room and seen what the conversation was, what they was looking for, and been like, nah, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
There's no way that you just started genuinely.
So therefore, being a reporter overpowered the sensibility of what was right at the moment. Right. You think?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I don't think Snoop was wrong. Snoop should
What was
apologize.
Snoop, Boozy, 50? I mean, quite a bunch of rappers were bothered by it.
I mean, LeBron tweeted about it.
Yeah.
He said we're our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was bothered by it. It was just distasteful. It was wrong timing.
Well, on the flip side, I'm looking forward to the 24th and seeing the public response he has. I mean, that's the public memorial that they're doing for him, and I'm really curious to see, just the amount of people, the sheer velocity of people at wherever they're doing everything, to come out and support him. Is it the Staples Center? Yeah. Because I heard they were looking at some other spots where there was so many people they didn't know where to go.
They did a private memorial, private funeral. The official funeral was last
Friday.
Near, and I guess it's like not that far away from where they live at.
Right.
But so they're already buried.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be like
this is just the public memorial for everybody, right? Yeah. Well, it's a sad story, regardless of all of it. It's
gonna be a tough. It's like, wow, we just was there not even a year ago for Nipsey.
And you think about it too, like this generation. We had Michael Jordan. Jordan was like a little bit over. We was in it, but it's like we grew up with the Kobe shit.
Right.
And he did music, and he was messing with artists, and how many artists, like like we were saying, like
he's a different
he was with
dude,
Jay-Z on New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that goes to show like the connection that what he had to that whole community. It's just it's a massive loss. Like, and it's we talk about Black History Month, which is a myth as far as I'm concerned, but for the fact that it happened like during this time,
right.
Like he's like one of our forefathers. It's just very tragic.
Yeah. Well, R.I.P. Kobe. It'll be I'm sure a pretty sad and beautiful day on the 24th, just to see all the love and support. Yeah, and how he's affected everyone. All right. So shifting to the next topic, I guess. Where do you guys want to go? That's not much, is it? All 50 spin-offs for the new TV shows that's happening. I think there's a bunch of them now. Yeah. What is it? They announced there's book
Raising Canaan.
Raising Canaan. What's it?
Power Book 2.
Power Book 2 Ghost.
Yes, and I saw. I think that's gonna be the one starring Tariq.
That's the one, yeah, because they released some photos yesterday of the cast, and he's the main. And I think we heard it. You know, it comes out after the For Life show that recently, his 50s For Life show that recently launched. So I think then we go with Ghost Book 2 is next, and then or Tower Book 2 Ghost. Then there's Power Book 3 Raising Canaan, Power Book 4 Influence, Power Book 5 Force, which I don't know. That's what 50 said. I don't.
No, I love
Instagram.
it.
I don't really know what all it means though.
Well, they showed a slight trailer. Force is gonna be how they hinted that's gonna be the show dedicated to Tommy.
But when do they come out? Does Book 2 have to end and go on for 5 years before Book 3 happens?
No.
Or is Book 3 and Book 2 happening at the same time?
No. I think everything is gonna be happening. Like I saw an interview where 50 says at a certain point you're gonna just have a whole year of power. He said Raising Canaan is close, is a little bit further into development. Obviously, Book 2, that's
Book 2 has Meth and Mary,
yeah, that's
and the cast out and all of that.
That's
now,
coming out in the summer. That's already being shot. I just saw Method and Tory on Instagram live from the set, and he said Influence, which is the one I'm most excited about because that's gonna follow Governor Tate in Albany. So I'm most excited about that because I think Lorenz was absolutely genius as the person you love to hate. He was hilarious. I think kudos to him, man, for, Lorenz Tate, he been around for so many years, 25, 30 years in the game, giving us so many classics from Menace, Dead Presidents, Love Jones, everything. And now to see him, at this stage of his career, giving some of his best work, I'm very proud of Lorenz. And he said those two, the last two, formed, 3 and 4 are in the writer's room now, so I think they're coming up with the scripts and stuff.
Do we think Tommy's spinoff is one of those?
Yeah, Tommy's is going to be the Force. Force is Tommy, Influence is Tate, Governor Tate. Kanan, obviously, that's going to be 50s, probably the flashback.
That's going to be, right, them of how they came to be, right? Yeah.
And Book 2 Ghost. So, man, it's a lot to digest.
Well, I'm disappointed that you didn't watch For Life this week. I thought for sure you would have seen that. He gets an excuse because he was in a different country.
I DVR.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time too, I was disappointed in Power.
The finale.
Yeah.
Okay, break that down. Why?
I think it was.
I thought it was predictable, but
yeah, it was definitely predictable. After a certain point, I just felt like, when you watch The Wire, you watch The Sopranos, which these are like celebrated shows, like similar in vein, like whatever happened. Like, my man, I forgot his name, the main actor in Wire, he got killed. That was pretty much the end of it.
Oh, Idris.
And
Strung About.
Yeah, and then you had The Wire and the other show, James Gandolfini, like who?
Sopranos.
Yeah, they basically said when he got killed, like that was it. So I felt like it was dragged out a little bit too much. It definitely.
You didn't think they needed the last 5 episodes?
I don't know. I mean, it definitely sparked the conversation. So I'm sure for them, like it worked. So I'm not going against them because it was genius in their part. I'm kind of split between like being a fan and understanding the aspect of the business. But as the fan,
But why did people make the decisions they make for things?
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and it got to the end. I thought it was a bad message to send, like his son killed his father, like that. That's coming from a parent perspective. That's just me personal, But it was disappointing to see that. And then when they announced like the other spinoffs and stuff, it felt like it was a lot. Like it was just a little overwhelming. Like, oh, we have 4 shows, like 3-4 shows, and not really getting too much into like the depths of like what each one is gonna be. So it's it's interesting, but I wasn't too pleased with the end. After investing all this time for these years, definitely wasn't
Well, I say this a lot of times when you look at the series finale episode, we're not pleased with it. For one, it's a show that we love that's ending. Regardless of the spinoffs, Power, as we have known it the past 6 years, which we've loved to watch, is ending. So we definitely not pleased with it. Um, I I didn't. I felt bad for Ghost. I know
Felt
Ghost
so bad for
did a
him.
lot
It
of
was crazy.
manipulating and stuff during his time, but if they would have just listened to him, he had the blueprint. He had the master plan to go legit. He's like, yo, I'm taking everybody to the promised land. If they would have just listened to him, his daughter would still be alive. Tasha would be out of jail. It's like they did all that ganging up on him.
But
And
can't you say
they're
if
all
he
fucked
didn't
now.
just cheat on his wife and stay with his wife and his family, then all of this wouldn't have happened either?
no,
They're
no,
all
no,
fucked
no, no,
now.
no, no, no,
They're
no, no,
broke,
no, no.
They ain't got no money. Like they're screwed.
Yeah.
They in jail.
One of the reasons why he wanted to leave his wife, like people, they look at it and say, "Oh, it was just the infidelity. He had his high school sweetheart and all of that. He shouldn't have left." And no, he wanted to leave because Tasha said, "I want you to be the biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York City." And when he said that, at that very instant, it clicked in his brain. We are in two totally different spaces. Like she's
Never gonna let me live.
Yeah.
She's never gonna
Yeah,
let me
she's not
be
trying
free.
to.
Yeah.
She's not trying
and
to
he
grow.
and he said that in the final episode. When she said, "Ghost, did you ever love me?" He said, "Yeah, I did love you, but you never loved this version of me.
Right.
You wanted the biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York City." And you gotta look at it. Ghost is like 40 something years old. And all of the chaos he had to go through, he was trying to avoid. Like every season, I had a conversation, not the name drop, I had a conversation with Ice-T about this. Ice-T is a fan of Power. And he's like, I love Power, but if you look at it, Ghost is never happy. Like he's never at peace for the whole series. And that's true. He was always trying to work himself out of different situations. Yeah, him and Angela, they had their love scenes, and I'm sure he was happy with that. But for the most part, he was always
I'm sure he was happy with those love scenes.
yeah. He was always trying to get himself out of one predicament or another. Like he killed off one rival, and then here comes somebody. Oh, you owe us $100 million. Then his son is manipulating him for $2 million, and Tommy is going wild. Like if everybody would have just fell in line and just, I think a lot of it was egos too, because Tommy, at a certain point, he was tired of Ghost telling him what to do all the time, and but he was the leader. He had the blueprint. He was like, look, I got this club. His club was popping, as you can see. He was like, I'm gonna get us legit. But everybody wanted to live that fast life, and then that was the consequence to it.
The unfortunate part is that it represents like real life, which salute to 50 because he took bits and pieces of like all these different elements of what happens like in this world, and black men growing up, and just in general, like just the shit that what we see like in the streets. And he was able to put it into a compelling story and attach people where they're so passionate and so emotional about it, and it is very unfortunate that like this product hasn't been recognized by like the major platforms, like
Right.
like the Oscars, and what I'm saying, like the big time,
The Emmys,
the Emmys and shit like that, like like because it's real life, and it's like there's so many people who's really passionate. I was reading like all these comments and stuff. Like I've literally had to stay away from social media for like damn near like a week because I
Did not know what's
didn't
going
have
on.
the chance to
Yeah.
watch it. That shit's real. You know what I'm saying? Like that shows the power, literally the power of a platform. People would die to have some shit like that, and and the fact that it's not being acknowledged, it's like why?
Yeah.
Everything gets acknowledged late. I mean, The Wire started getting acknowledged like maybe like the last season or two, but a lot of people are scared of this, man. Like
right. That's a part of it.
Yeah, like this is it's too real for them. But I thought everybody the last episode, of course I was disappointed that Ghost died. There was, and I know 50 had leaked on his Instagram page. It showed Tasha killing Ghost, so automatically I knew when he leaked that, I knew that was I knew that was the setup. So, I wish he would have just left it with, just left it alone, because it would have been more of a surprise. But we predicted Tariq is the killer all along. And I thought they did a really good job on the acting side. It was such a, it was funny, but it was powerful at the same time when Tasha was in that jail. She had to take that.
Well, that's
wig
what we're gonna
off.
have to see now with the other things. Yeah.
Yeah, she took that wig
That
off.
was mad real when she.
Now she's in jail. I mean, I don't know if she bails out or whatever, but we'll see. She's gonna spend at least some part of the show in jail, right? Of book 2 or whatever it is.
And they made Tasha. They made us hate Tasha again. That's one of the grievance that I have, because when, like I said, I didn't really care for her when she was talking about she wanted her husband to be the biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York City, especially where they got 3 kids at the time, and she just wasn't seeing for the future. But then we came to sympathize with her as a ride or die character, like she do whatever to keep the family together, and I thought that was cool. And then she goes and she sets up her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend, yeah, that was.
When she know that he got a little daughter, I thought that was terrible, man.
And he's actually being good to her.
Yeah,
nice.
he was a good guy.
Yeah, he put his shit on the line by even bringing her there.
But he knew there was a problem, because they said he didn't trust, so he wanted an alibi on camera. So he went and got a Red Bull or whatever, went to the store or whatever. He knew something was up there.
He's smart.
Yeah. So.
All right, so we'll see what 50 does, and with all the other spin-offs and everything there, and hopefully they're as good. And then you've got the new show, and I mean, he's just becoming
first time
more of a
ever
force.
done too, by the way. Like, congrats to 50 on that. The first
Super
time.
props to 50.
All of these spin-offs just
Courtney
off
Kemp,
off of one show. Like, he's Wu-Tang Clan in it. Like Power's the 36 Chambers album, and then all of these spin-offs is the solo. So.
And the thing too that I really appreciated about 50, like really spearheading that project, is he gave a lot of people opportunities. Like all those guys that you seen in there, like homeboy you was talking about who got
Charlie Murphy was on his practical deathbed. He was playing a role in there.
He had homeboy from
Cosby Show.
World.
Yeah, they got a Cosby Show guy. Like they really did give opportunities to people on that show that they didn't kind of get acknowledgement for. You know,
that was amazing. Even the guy 2-Bit, I watched the Power Confidential parts a lot, and they had the episode with the guy 2-Bit, and he was breaking down a lot about how 50 gave them an opportunity, and how he referred his man, who was also in that scene, who never really had a shot like that, had been trying to do stuff like that, and 50 gave him a shot. Mm-hmm. So for all the scrutiny and shit that 50 gets sometimes like that, like people don't understand, like that's Hollywood, that's big business, put somebody on camera, and for them to get a check from out this shit.
And he giving all of these people jobs too.
Yeah.
Well, then you also have For Life is dealing with criminal justice reform and an amazing, crazy story, and it's on ABC.
Yeah.
Now, and we're, that I don't know if that would have existed a few years ago, or whatever. But all right. So the last topic, just because we're running. So it's been a slow week. Eminem shows up at the Oscars and performs. Won in 2003. Comes out 17 years later to perform the song from 2003. Song goes to number 1. The power of, I guess, an Oscars performance. But what did you guys think of seeing Eminem at the Oscars and the weird response from the audience?
I was actually watching the Oscars, to be honest with you.
I was watching him. He came out, and I was like, is this a flashback? I was like, is this real? I don't think he was there before. Is this real right now? And then the song keeps going, and I'm like, oh, no, this is actually happening.
Yeah, they tried to pull a rabbit out the hat. It's, Eminem comes outside so infrequently. It's always good when you see him, but
we had just seen him at the, the 50 Star, and him speaking there. So he was good for 6 months. We didn't have to see him again.
Right. You know, that's what it felt like. But
Yeah.
Hey, you know, that's one of the great movie songs. We forget that song is actually
From a soundtrack movie, and had won an Oscar. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, it's good to see him do it.
Do you feel like that's a win for hip hop when Eminem comes out and 17 years later to perform, and that's a look for hip hop, or is that just a look for Eminem, or do you feel like proud of it in the hip hop sense?
I think it's a look for hip hop. I was literally, so I was out of the country. You know, we have what's called geo blocking, where you can't see a lot of the content that kind of originates from the States. So I was on YouTube, like literally, like watching all the red carpet stuff, and I was like just poking around, like I need to watch the show. And after about like a good hour and a half, I just gave up, and I was like, fuck it. And I was like, it's just gonna be the show. I'll watch it tomorrow. And I woke up the next morning, and it was like Eminem came. I was like, God damn it! And I was sitting there talking to my wife. I'm like, fuck, the one time not to be able to watch the shit, fucking Eminem comes out at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And I thought I thought it was dope. I ran into Paul the week before, and we spoke a little bit, and he told me about a bunch of stuff at Def Jam that they was doing, and he talked a little bit about Eminem. But I think that is cool of, you know, the things of what he's been doing lately, like putting out the album, and you know, again, like we've all covered Eminem for like all these years, so we notice a little bit of a difference within like this cycle that what he has going on, and you know, him like just like like putting out an album, and you know, like really rapping. The album was dope, and you know, him like really supporting 50, like him and Dre being there. I thought that was really fucking dope, and him being at the Oscars, like, you know, it gave it a hip hop presence. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, if we was talking about like way back, and this is just my opinion, if we was talking about back in the days when it was like the Eminem Interscope hype machine, you know what I'm saying, and he was there, it would have been a little bit different, but it felt differently now. You know what I'm saying? Like he's more like representing hip hop even more. So that I thought that was cool.
Anytime you get a chance to get Eminem on that mic and perform is always a win, and you know, M always represent hip hop, so
it looked like he's real hungry right now. You know, like not to say that he's never been hungry before, but like he's really out for it, and you know, they put that stamp on it, like him being at the Oscars. Just a huge deal.
I like what's coming out of, you know, out of that camp right now. Royce is putting out some real good music right now, man. Royce is, you know, he got out Yellow Wolf a little bit, and I like what Royce is doing, man. I'm excited for his project.
All right, let's wrap it up for the day. Anything else you want to mention, or?
Shout out to Weezy.
Yes, Weezy passes Elvis for the second most top 40 hits of all time. Number one still belongs to the cast of Glee.
What you think about Steve Stout? I gotta ask you for release.
Steve Stout and the Knicks.
Steve Stout and the Knicks. I hope he could turn it around, man. Like you've been suffering for so many years.
Well, man, aside from that, the scrutiny, because I felt like he's been scrutinized because he's a black man, and not only that, a person like representing like hip hop. That's how it felt a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they still scared of us a little bit, but you know, Steve Stout is a very influential. He's a very successful guy. We all know him, and you know, I think it's good that he's working with Dolan to kind of tell him, yo, some things you gotta chill with, man. Like the Charles Oakley situation, and keep banning fans from the Garden. Like he needs somebody to give him like a reality check. Dolan, you gotta chill. And I think Steve is gonna be somebody who's when he sits down with Dolan, help him get the right president. Like it really just comes to who's gonna be that president. Like they said, they got a couple of people who they looking at. We need that president and we need that coach, and then everything else will kind of fall in line. But you know, they need a Stout, because no matter how big the Knicks are, the most valuable franchise, the biggest city. I love New York. I think we the greatest city in the world for sports, but nobody wanted to come to the Knicks because they don't have faith in us. So I think Stout is somebody who's a familiar face with some of these athletes, some of these executives, some of these managers and agents. So, you know, hopefully he could do it. We need help. We need help.
We can end it on love. It's Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Who's
Happy
the best Valentine's Day couple in hip hop? I think it's Cardi and Offset. I say J&B, but that's the default. That's obvious. I think it's Cardi.
I have like no answer on this.
I think it's Cardi and Offset.
Would it be Ciara and Russell Wilson?
Even though his hair is fucked up right now.
He's doing something different.
Jay fucked all these guys up. He's like, yo, you can just go there with your hair.
Hey man,
the hair situation with him is crazy.
Well, I can't talk.
All right, thank you guys. Till next week.